ॐ विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यनिजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यस्साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्रचित्रीकृतं मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ So, in the philosophy, three aspects are there. So, epistemology, metaphysics, and third is the purpose. And epistemology is basically pramana vichara. Regarding pramana, there is analysis of pramana. That's epistemology. And metaphysics means you understand the ontological status of various things. And third is the purpose, ultimately. Purpose of a particular philosophy. What do they talk about? Moksha, etc. That's a purpose. Anyway, so we are actually in the epistemology. And we started with the pratyaksha. Pramana vichara, the pratyaksha. Regarding pratyaksha, what does various philosophers say? And in that, we started with a Nayayika. And in that, we also talked about a error in perception. Pratyaksha means perception. And we also talked about a error in perception. Regarding error in perception also, there are several things. Regarding pratyaksha itself, there are several things. It means every philosopher regarding the pramana, pratyaksha pramana says different thing. We also saw laukika pratyaksha, alaukika pratyaksha, what Nayayikas say. And regarding perceptual error also, which is adhyasa, like rope snake or shell silver, regarding that every philosopher has to say something different. And in that we also touched the ontological aspect also, because perceptual error means then definitely mithya and satyam things are there, adhishthanam is satyam, etc. So we touched little bit part of a ontological status, metaphysics also. But now again we are, because that's a topic which is going on, and that topic is this epistemology. And so now I will pick up the thread of that pratyaksha, and regarding pratyaksha what Nayayika has to say. So I am coming back to the same topic now. Pratyaksha, starting with the Nayayikas. And then Vishishta Advaitin says something, Advaitin also says something. Very important thing, very, very important. So Nayayika makes two distinctions in pratyaksha. He says there is a nirvikalpaka pratyaksha and savikalpaka pratyaksha. We should understand this nirvikalpa and savikalpa anywhere. Anywhere these words are there. You can replace it with a vikalpa. That word can be replaced with guna, word guna, or word vishesha. Nirvikalpaka is equal to nirvishesha, is equal to nirguna. Savikalpaka is equal to savishesha or saguna. This is just by the way. Vikalpa means a differentiation. Nirvikalpa means no differentiation. This much we know. And so here in perception he says, he makes a distinction in pratyaksha called nirvikalpaka pratyaksha and savikalpaka pratyaksha. So in this problem of distinction between nirvikalpaka and savikalpaka, this distinction of, this problem of distinction between these two types of pratyaksha runs in all systems, including our system also. Let's talk let us start with Naiyayikas first. And in Nayayika says this nirvikalpaka is a first stage. Pratyaksha is there, perception. In that the first stage is a nirvikalpaka and second stage is a savikalpaka. So the first stage it is a first stage of a perception called nirvikalpaka pratyaksha. He says every object in the world is a vishishta, qualified by some guna or features. And so, and substance and quality always go together. That also we know. Guna guni, vishesha or visheshana and vishesha, always they will be together. So they are all together. Only thing is, is to start with, when you come in contact with an object, the first thing is you know a thing, or you will have a sensation of a thing in which you will not have, you are not aware of a proper relational aspect of that. So we are not able to basically connect one thing with the other. I'll tell you what it is. So there is an indefinite basically seeing of an object. You are seeing an object, but there is an indefinite senses there. Like, suppose you are passing through here and immediately your eyes fall on a tree. Within the first thing is, you will see there is something tall, or first thing is you see something green, but it is a green tall tree will not arise. In the perception, the first thing is ultimately it is a sensation in which you know there is something green or there is something tall. But you are not aware of a substance called tree with a quality called greenness. That happens afterwards. So first thing arises, this is nirvikalpaka, undifferentiated object. That is what they say. So it's a mere sensation, it is not a knowledge naturally. And so when we then pay attention, then we are able to connect, with another thing, with a attributes or with a substance, and you say, oh, it's a tree with a green leaves, etc., etc. So this is called savikalpaka, in which you understand a substance and qualities also. That differentiation arises in your mind. So basically, nirvikalpaka means the object has a various qualities, but initially I am not able to connect the object with the qualities or qualities with the object, substance. So it's a mere sensation for me, it is not knowledge, and then that sensation is interpreted by, by me, by connecting, the two. And then I say this is a substance called tree and it has a quality called greenness, etc. So this is how a sensation or a nirvikalpa pratyaksha becomes, after interpretation, becomes a savikalpaka jnana. So pratyaksha basically has two stages. First is a sensation in which you are, even though the object is a savishesha, object is a saguna, object is a savikalpaka, but in your mind the differentiation of substance, qualities, etc. does not arise. You just see something tall or something green. Now you are not able to connect substance with the qualities or qualities with the substance. That kind of a perception is there, which is really not a knowledge, it is just a sensation, which is called nirvikalpaka pratyaksha. And that becomes, after interpretation, oh, it's a tree with a green qualities. Now that kind of a definite knowledge arises. They call it as in philosophy, they call it as a preposition. Preposition means a definite statement in which you are really aware of a substance and qualities also. So this kind of a, initially it's just a sensation without any connection between substance and qualities, etc. That kind of a pratyaksha is in the Vikalpaka, and then you interpret, oh, that it is a substance called tree and it has a quality called greenness, etc. While that is a Savikalpaka Jnanam. So this is okay. This pratyaksha is Nirvikalpaka and Savikalpaka, it is okay. But there is something more Nayayika says which create a problem for Advaitins. That we'll discuss. He says, well, we don't have access to this Nirvikalpaka, even though it's a perception. It is from the Savikalpaka Jnanam, well, Savikalpaka Pratyaksha, we can infer Nirvikalpaka. Even though it is a chronologically there, the Nirvikalpaka itself, there is something, etc., that kind of a Pratyaksha is there, that only after interpretation becomes Savikalpaka. So chronologically first Nirvikalpaka and then Savikalpaka. But he says, well, that we don't have access to Nirvikalpaka. Why? Because it is fleeting. It's a sensation, it is fleeting. And moment we will want to attend it, it goes away. Goes away means it gets interpreted and turns into Savikalpaka, becomes a clear perception. So, sensation becomes a perception immediately, and therefore we are not able to get hold of Nirvikalpaka, Pratyaksha. So, the sensation, Nirvikalpaka plus interpretation becomes a perception or Savikalpaka Jnana. So, perception minus interpretation, well, is just a sensation, that is called Nirvikalpaka. So, Nayayikas are very specific that you can't catch sensation. A moment, this is an example, they give example. He says if you attend some concert, musical concert, once you are identified with that concert or music and musician, etc., and then you are just one with it, no differentiation. But moment you become aware of that and you try to hold to that moment of joy, well, then that sensation goes away. And therefore, ultimately, he says, so moment you are aware of the differentiation, etc., then Nirvikalpaka won't remain. And therefore, subsequently you can recollect and say, I enjoyed, etc. But while you are enjoying, you are just absorbed into that, identified with the musician, etc. At that time, well, you are not interpreting anything. If you moment you start interpreting about music, oh, this is good and this is this raga and that and etc., that sensation of that joy just goes away. That's how they say. So Nirvikalpaka always has to be inferred from the Savikalpaka. That's what they say. What we say we will come to know later. So Nayayika says initially object with attributes etc. are there. This is a quality, this is substance, etc. And so every substance is a Vishishta. This is a dangerous thing, because Advaita's whole castle is standing on Nirguna, and therefore this thing we have to be very alert. We feel they are just talking something regarding Pratyaksha. It is not. It's ultimately about Jnanam. Pratyaksha is a Jnanam, and therefore ultimately it will come up to us that there is nothing called Nirguna Jnanam, etc. We'll talk about it. So anyway, so this is a quality, this is substance, and substance is a Visishta basically. So this kind of analysis, whenever you do, it is basically a Savikalpaka stage of a perception. In a Nirvikalpaka stage, you cannot do anything. You know about Nirvikalpaka only by inference from the Savikalpaka only. There is no other way, because it is very momentary, and the moment you become aware of that, till then it just goes away. So anyway, so when we are definite about this substance and attributes and their relationship, etc., at that point, well, you can go conceptually, you can go back, and you can definitely think about the Nirvikalpaka. Anyway, because the substance and attribute relationship you have not created. It was there. It is not that in Savikalpaka you have created a relationship of a substance and attribute. No, it was there. You are not aware of in a Nirvikalpaka stage. And so one moment you become aware of a substance and attribute, well, the Vikalpa has already arisen. That's called differentiation. That this is a substance and this has these attributes. So tree with a, well, it's a green tree, or let's say the rose is red. So you are aware of the rose as substance, redness as an attribute, all you are aware of. So that is Savikalpaka. Differentiation, substance, attributes. But in a Nirvikalpaka stage, well, you are not aware of. The moment when you are aware of, well, it is Savikalpaka. And therefore, you have to infer Nirvikalpaka from the Savikalpaka. You cannot hold a Nirvikalpaka thing. And so this is how they say. So the, well, so thing has already a quality. Initially, you are not able to conceive of it, and so you are not able to know. And so initial stage, it is already there, that substance and attributes both are there. Object is basically Savishesha only, but you are not able to hold at that stage, in initial stage. You can, you are, when you are aware of both, it's a second stage, Savikalpaka stage only. And so infer from Savikalpaka, well, you can always infer Nirvikalpaka. This is we are not going to accept, but this is what they say. Anyway, so what he said about this Nirvikalpaka and Savikalpaka, well, we conclude something. That a definite statement, I mean Nayayika's conclusion only. So it's a definite statement is a Savikalpaka Jnana. When you make a definite statement regarding anything, it is Savikalpaka. Rose is red, Savikalpaka. Tree is green, Savikalpaka. Or this is a good human being, Savikalpaka. Because you are aware of attributes and the person, the substance. And therefore, it is all Savikalpaka. So, knowledge perceived with the distinction is Savikalpaka Jnanam. And then only you make these definite statements, we call they call it as a prepositions. And it's a true statement. And that kind of a true statements cannot be made at a Nirvikalpaka stage because you are not aware of. You see something red or sees a rose, but that rose and redness were not so evident in the Nirvikalpaka stage. Therefore, such a kind of a true statement called rose is red cannot be made at a Nirvikalpaka stage. Difference between two is, well, ultimately become clear in a Savikalpaka stage, and then you can make a statement called rose is red, and that's a true statement. So the difference between Nirvikalpaka and Savikalpaka is basically a qualitative difference, and in terms of this, in which in one stage, Savikalpaka, you are aware of basically both the things, and you make a statement which is a true statement, all that the tree is green or something, whatever. So this is a picture with which now we move from Nayayika's, to Mimamsakas. Nayayikas talk about perception. From there, let's go to Mimamsaka. What do they say about this Pratyaksha? Nirvikalpaka and Savikalpaka. What do they think about this distinction between the two things? See, Mimamsaka accepts Nirvikalpaka Pratyaksha and Savikalpaka Pratyaksha. But Mimamsaka says, well, this Nirvikalpaka Pratyaksha is like the child. Speaks which we can't understand, but which is understood by mother or a father. So basically it is something like that. Nirvikalpaka Pratyaksha is like a small, very small child is speaking something. You are not able to understand. Mother is able to understand. Or maybe father is able to understand. Maybe father maybe he is able to understand. But anyway, so it is something like that. Anyway, so I mean, we cannot make it out. It has a meaning. Otherwise, how will mother understand? So it has a meaning, but we are not able to construe the meaning. And well, ultimately, it's a process of a socialization. Mother is the first teacher, so she socializes the child, And well, then of course, he picks up the language, the child picks up a language, and then it becomes Savikalpaka. Now you are also able to understand his language, and the mother also is able to understand. But initially what the child was speaking, well, you were not able to understand. Mother was able to understand. It was a meaningful, but you were not able to understand. So that's a Nirvikalpika stage. Please understand. It's a very different from Naiyayikas. So Mimamsakas basically do not accept the Nyaya view that we don't have access to Nirvikalpika. And we should infer from Savikalpika. Well, that's not true. Mimamsaka says we have access to Nirvikalpakas, Pratyaksha, but we are not able to say exactly what it is like. We have access, but we are not able to say exactly what it is like. And but we do have access, and then it becomes Savikalpaka. You are able to understand it also what it is, etc. This is Mimamsaka. Nayayika says you don't have access. You have to infer Nirvikalpika from Savikalpika. Mimamsaka says you have access to the Nirvikalpika, but you are not able to understand clearly what it is. Once you clearly know what it is, it becomes Savikalpika. And therefore, like child's language, now you are able to understand, we call it as a Savikalpika. When the child's language was we are not able to understand or construe, it was a meaningful, but we are not able to construe, then well, we say it is Nirvikalpika. So that's how it is. You are not able to clearly distinguish what he is saying. That's a Nirvikalpika. So they give an example of a child. Very beautiful example. And so, it's quite different view from the Naiyayikas. Naiyayika says you don't have access to Nirvikalpika at all, because it is momentary, etc. Moment you become aware of, and then it becomes Savikalpika. Aware of what? Aware of differentiation. And therefore, moment you pay attention, well, it becomes Savikalpika, etc., etc. And Mimamsaka says, no, you have access, but you don't construe the meaning of it, or you don't construe clearly what it is like. Like that it is. So this is the difference. And now let's go to Vishishtadvaita. He is a hero. Ramanujacharya ji, from the beginning, he has some problem with the Shankaracharya ji. I don't know. So, because, what happened was, Shankaracharya ji has created an empire, really. Shankaracharya ji basically challenged this Bhartru Prapancha, which is Ramanujacharya's even mentor. And therefore, so Veda Vedavada. So Shankaracharya ji basically challenged Bhartru Prapancha's Veda Vedavada. Shankaracharya ji challenged Bauddhas. Shankaracharya ji basically deconstructed, orthodoxy in this ortho practices of the Mimamsa also. And because Mimamsaka says, karma only gives moksha, or karma jnana gives, samuchaya gives moksha, and Bhashyakara has literally thrashed everything. And so Bhashyakara has created a monolithic structure, which nobody could destroy it. And so if Ramanujacharya ji wanted to create his building, he has to destroy this building. He has to destroy, otherwise he cannot create. And that is what he did. So Ramanujacharya ji basically in a Brahmasutra Bhashyam, in the first sutra itself, he wrote a long Bhashyam in which he definitely has, tried to destroy entire philosophy of Advaita, and blaming Shankaracharya ji, also Mayavadi and everything. And but one beautiful thing Ramanujacharya ji did is, he gave a summary of Advaita, which even Advaitins cannot give. So beautiful summary he gave of a whole Advaita, if you should see that. So try to get in English. Whole summary of Advaita Vada he has given in that Brahmasutra Bhashyam on 111 basically. Anyway, so basically, and Bhashyakara has, while of course destroy, but in fact Bhashyakara has written a commentary on Bhagavad Gita, that Upodghad Bhashyam you should see, in which he has to mention the purpose of writing commentary on Bhagavad Gita, because already commentaries were available. So then he has to show the purpose of writing another commentary. And he told very clearly in Upodghad Bhashyam of Bhagavad Gita that I have to write this commentary because certain commentaries are not available, and the commentaries which are available does not really bring out the whole purport of the Bhagavad Gita. And therefore, well, I'm compelled to write this commentary like that. So, anyway, so basically, this Shankaracharya ji did this deconstruction. Deconstruction means, this all the different Vadas are there. Well, definitely the fallacies in their Vadas, etc., have been shown. It's called deconstruction. Reconstruction means you build your thing. Deconstruction means you basically destroy what the structure is. So the whole structure, the Buddhas created, this Veda Vedavadi Bhartru Prapancha created, and all were destroyed. And even Mimamsaka's whole castle was destroyed by Bhashyakara. And Bhashyakara created a monolithic Advaita, so monolithic structure of basically this. And then Ramanujacharya ji has to destroy that building in order to create his own. That's what he did. I'm sure that Ramanujacharya ji was knowing the Advaitavada clearly. Otherwise, how could you give a summary? If you don't know Advaita, how would you give a summary? And the summary he gave was even we could not write a summary of Advaitavada that much beautifully he has written. But still, he wanted to disagree with this Advaita. Anyway, so what he did was he initially created a very, I am going to talk about the Nirvikalpa, etc. of a Ramanuja, means Vishishta Advaita. But I am just giving you an introduction of this Ramanujacharya ji. So you may be thinking that now I am writing an essay of Ramanuja. No. I am coming to that. So anyway, so he starts in that Brahma Sutra with a minor objection to the Advaita called Laghu Purvapaksha. And then he gives a answer, naturally. He himself gives an answer. This is like our Bhashyakara. Bhashyakara has that status, That is how we should not talk very evil about Ramanujacharya because he has a status of a Bhashyakara. If it is some commentary other than that or some English commentator and translating something that, then we can definitely talk something, we can censure him. Bhashyakara has a different status, and therefore he was a very great person, Ramanujacharya ji. And so and Bhashyakara always creates any Bhashyakara. Our Bhashyakara may be in Shankara Bhashyam or a Shri Bhashyam of a Ramanujacharya ji. Bhashyakara's job is to create a Purvapaksha and answer. And that's what he starts in Brahma Sutra. So he starts with a minor objection called Laghu Purvapaksha. And then he gives a reply called Laghu Siddhanta. And then he raises a major objection and then he again replies. And then he formulated that objection further. And initially gave that I said you a beautiful commentary, summary rather, statement of a Advaita Vedanta. In that objection, even in that objection itself, before that he gives that summary in that major objection. And then then Ramanujacharya started talking about destroying this Advaita, trying to destroy rather. And so he decided to disagree with this Advaita. And this is the thing. Some of the Purvapakshis sometime they raise a Purvapaksha, but they, without knowing others' position, basically they present their picture. It's an entirely different picture. So, or they may misinterpret us and definitely raise an objection. What we wanted to say one thing, but then they interpret differently and then create an objection. Whereas Ramanujacharya ji is an exception. He knew what Advaita Vedanta was, and so he summarized also. And knowing what we are, he creates a doubt. Therefore, this is a different type. Anyway, and he says regarding, now let's talk about Nirvikalpaka and Savikalpaka in Vishishta Advaita. He says every object is Savishesha. Every object is Vishishta. That's how Vishishta Advaita. So every object is Vishishta. There is no object called Nirvishesha. So Brahman also is Savishesha. And Brahman is also object of a knowledge. So Savishesha. Whatever you know object of knowledge is Savishesha. It may be a Brahman or it may be something else. Okay, that's true. We can know object. All the objects of knowledge are Savishesha. Okay. How will you know it? What is the pramana for that? Well, he says all the pramanas proclaim the nature of an object as a Savishesha only. Everything is Savishesha. So all the pramanas, how many pramanas? He accepts only 3, I have already told you. Pratyaksha, Anumana and Shabda. He says Pratyaksha also provides enough evidence for us that every object is a Saguna or a Savishesha or a Savikalpaka, either. So basically, and Anumana and Shabda also gives a proof for that. Then he says, so it's very interesting. He says that every object is Savishesha, that's what my claim is. He says, see, wherever you use a word in a sentence, right, like Rama killed Ravana. Here, Rama is in a nominative case, Prathama Vibhakti, subjective. And Ravana is in an accusative case, right? Ramaha Ravanam Hanti, etc. So basically, Rama is in a subjective case or a nominative case. Ravana is in accusative case, and Hanti, that killed, is a verb. So this is this sentence in which there are these words. Now let's take the word. The word is always made from a Prakriti and Pratyaya. Every word will have a Pratyaya before it goes to a sentence. If any word has to qualify to be used in a sentence, then definitely there some Pratyaya must be there. And that Pratyaya is indicated by the case. So Ramaha, Ramena, Ramam, Ramasya, and like that, Rame, Ramat, whatever. So Prakriti plus Pratyaya. Right? Every word before it goes to the sentence, because sentence is a group of words. So every word which we use in a sentence has Prakriti, base, and Pratyaya. Rama is a base, person. And so it's a meaningful word, right? So Rama is also having a meaning, and then you add suffix. Specific suffix. Yeah. If you want to show it as a subject or agent of an action of killing, you have to use a Prathama Vibhakti. So Ramaha. So he says, understand this, the base also is there and you add some Pratyaya and Prakriti plus Pratyaya. Prakriti means a base and you add a Pratyaya in that, and that becomes that word now it gets qualified to be used in a sentence. Ramaha Ravanam Hanti. So Ramaha, why are you writing that ha? Visarga, why are you writing? It has specific meaning to indicate it is a subject of the action. And Ravanam basically is an object of an action. And therefore, or even if he says, well, if you feel that it is an active voice, but even if a passive voice also, you have to use Vibhakti. Ravana was killed by Rama. Then you put Ravanaha. Again you have to use a Vibhakti. Some suffix, Pratyaya must be there. Anyway, what he says is, every word, when you add this Vibhakti, becomes Savishesha. The word has its own meaning, and you add Pratyaya into that, specific Pratyaya, means definitely the word becomes more and more differentiated. Ramaha is differentiated from Ravanam. And Rama, the base also has a different meaning. Ravana, the base, the person is different. And you add Vibhakti also in that, becomes more specific, more and more Savishesha. Or even if you use Ramaha and Ramena, etc., or Ramat, also has a different, even though base is one, the Rama, but then by Rama, unto Rama, or for Rama, definitely for Rama is not equal to by Rama. So in Rama is not equal to from Rama. So definitely the sentence, we may feel that what is he doing? He is very, Ramanujacharya is a brilliance you will see. He says, so basically every word is a savishesha. Because you are not just going to use word. Every word you are going to utter the sentences. And sentences are composed of words. And every word to be fit into the sentence will have more and more pratyayas, different pratyayas, and become more and more vishesha. So basically any sentence conveys, gives a knowledge which of a savishesha vastu. Any sentence. And now he says, I am talking about this laukika sentences, Ramaha Ravanam Hanti, etc. Now, Veda also has a sentences. Being a sentence, definitely it has a words. Whether it is a laukika sentence or a alaukika sentence, used by a human being or used by Veda, ultimately it has words. And every word ultimately denotes some savishesha vastu. And therefore Vaidika statements also gives you knowledge or reveal savishesha vastu. There is nothing called nirguna jnanam. Nirguna jnanam, nirvishesha vastu itself is not there. You say you come to know through Veda that about nirgunam brahma. He says it's a sentence, understand. Every sentence has words, and words always are savishesha. Because even if all are connected to the kriyapada, verb, their connection to the verb is different. One is connected to the verb as a subject, one is connected as an object, one is connected as an instrument, one is connected as a purpose. All are different. Right? So basically, whole sentence gives you a knowledge or reveals a thing of a savishesha vastu. There is nothing called nirguna jnanam, nirvikalpaka jnanam, etc. Anyway, so this is how he says. And now, he says, this is the first point. So pratyaksha, etc., pratyaksha, anumana, shabda, all ultimately gives you knowledge of a savishesha vastu. Then second, he says, our experiences of everything, all experiences of all the people are also of a vishesha vastu only, vishishta vastu only, savikalpaka vastu only. And because the visheshas are all the time there, and those visheshas only you are experiencing, and therefore, ultimately, whatever your experiences are, that is also of a vishishta vastu, means possessing vishesha. And so, okay, this is all right. But do you accept the distinction between nirvikalpaka pratyaksha and savikalpaka pratyaksha? Because that's a topic. Okay, this is your theory. We understood that every sentence will reveal a savishesha vastu. That we agree. But then what do you think about this nirvikalpaka pratyaksha and savikalpaka pratyaksha? Is this distinction, do you believe or not? Do you accept or not? He says yes. See this. So he says everything is savishesha and still he accepts nirvikalpa pratyaksha, nirvishesha pratyaksha he accepts? Yeah. He is a genius. He says there is a first nirvikalpaka and then savikalpaka pratyaksha. First stage nirvikalpa pratyaksha, like Nayayika. And then second stage savikalpa pratyaksha. When we use nirvikalpa pratyaksha, we feel that, nirvikalpa pratyaksha means object of that perception must be nirvikalpaka. How will you call otherwise nirvikalpaka pratyaksha? When you say nirvikalpaka perception, means the object of that perception is nirvikalpaka. He says, what do you think? It's not true. No. Since I have to do your brainwashing. Basically, Nayayikas have conditioned you. It is not like that. Even nirvikalpa pratyaksha has an object which is savishesha only, savikalpaka only. And savikalpaka pratyaksha also has a savikalpaka. Oh, this is contradiction. Don't be quiet. We'll reveal everything to you. We'll give example and you will agree with us. Object is savikalpa only, savishesha only. But then in the perception of that object, there is a distinction. That distinction is a nirvikalpaka pratyaksha, and that's the first stage. Then savikalpaka, second stage. Object is never nirvikalpaka, nirguna, nirvishesha. No. No. So do you have example? Yeah, we have example. We have example. Nothing to worry. There is an important distinction between these two pratyaksha. And we will make that distinction. Please listen. He says, in the case of a nirvikalpaka pratyaksha, even though object is a vishishta, it is not possible for us to know the jati of that vishishta vastu. He gives an example, beautiful example. And so the knowledge of genus, knowledge of that class, jati, will not be there. So you know a vastu with a vishesha, but you don't know the jati of it. That's a nirvikalpaka pratyaksha. And same object or a similar object, vishishta vastu, along with the jati it is known, it is a savikalpaka. Example, beautiful example. Take your child to a zoo, and then when you take to a child to a zoo, first time, small child, you are taking him, the child to a zoo, and child sees there, well, basically a elephant. Now he sees elephant, definitely some vishishta vastu. He sees a trunk, he sees that tusk, he sees a tail, he sees the body, color, this, that, eyes, everything. Vishishta vastu. But he doesn't know it is elephant. He says this is some animal. Now same child is taken to a temple in Guruvayur. Guruvayur, right? And there he sees again an elephant. And then definitely what happens? At least this much he knows, that this is an animal similar to what I saw in a zoo. Right? So there is a, now, so when he says that this looks like that, see what Vishishta Advaitin says is that he explains this by using two terms, technical terms, which I want to introduce. He says Prathama Pinda Grahanam. Prathama Pinda Grahanam, Pinda means this object, Grahanam, grasping, knowing, basically. So comprehending. So comprehension or a grasping for the first time, you perceive an object. Well, that first perception of an object without that class, jati, is called nirvikalpaka pratyaksha. And second pratyaksha will be this, along with the jati, in which, well, there is an emergence of the jati. Well, emergence of the jati for that boy. So this looks like that. So there is emergence of a class feature now in the knowledge, in the perception. This belongs to the same class as the first one. He doesn't know. See, we should understand this jati, class. Class is something which is common to all. That's called class. Human class, elephant class means what? It is common to all. What is common in various members is a jati. Various members of, let's say, the various human beings are there. What is common? Humanness is a common. That is how you recognize. You recognize one human being, you meet one human being and you meet the person, you know about the person. But then you meet another person and you say he's a human being. How? You are entirely different to other person, but you say he's a human being. because you recognize something common between two. That's called jati. This is how we recognize. So even child also has seen first time a elephant in a zoo, Vishishta Vastu, but not understanding, well, jati, etc. Now when he sees again in Guruvayur temple, well, then definitely this much arises in his mind that this looks like that. So there is the emergence of that commonness, emergence of that class feature. So this belongs to the same class as the first one. So only at the time of this Dvitiya Pinda Grahanam, means when, well, child, Dvitiya Pinda means object. Same object or a similar object, Grahanam, when he perceives, a second perception of the similar or a same object, well, will give a child a glimpse of samanyam between two, or a jati, of glimpse of a jati. And it is a good start naturally. So Prathama Pinda Grahanam, the first perception of an object, definitely Vishishta Vastu, is a Nirvikalpaka Pratyaksha. It's a perception of a Nirvikalpaka Vastu, and as per the Ramanujacharya, in which a perception of a Vishishta Vastu or Savishesha Vastu or Savikalpa Vastu or Saguna Vastu, and is a Nirvikalpaka. And in a second perception, well, a perception of a Vishishta Vastu along with the common feature, jati, is in Savikalpaka Pratyaksha. So what is in Nirvikalpaka also has a truth value, unlike Nayayikas. Nayayika says there is no, it's not knowledge, it's some sensation. There is some green or there is something tall. So that is not knowledge, it's just a sensation. So Nirvikalpaka has a no truth value. That's what Nayayika says. Well, Mimamsaka says no, there is a truth value. We do not construe the meaning. We do not know what it is like. But well, it is a meaningful, like the child, etc., what his child speaks, etc. There is a truth value. And Vishishta Advaitin also say, yes, Nirvikala Pratyaksha has a truth value because the child is seeing an object in front and with the features, etc. So it has a truth value. But the jati is absent there. Yeah, jati is absent there. So, and so basically, in a Dvitiya Pinda Grahanam, etc., well, yeah, it is. And so even Nirvikala Pratyaksha also can be expressed in a proposition that this is something which has trunk or whatever. All features are there and therefore he can describe in words. It has a truth value. And Savikalpa Pratyaksha, of course, along with the jati. But the difference between Nirvikalpa Pratyaksha and Savikalpa Pratyaksha is in terms of a degree only, because both have a truth value and therefore not in kind. Only one is with jati, one is without jati. So Ramanujacharyaji's Vishishta Advaitvadi says that, well, both are true statements. In a Nirvikalpa Pratyaksha also there is a truth value for that, and here also. And so difference between them is just in a degree and not in a kind, basically. It's not an entirely different thing altogether, like Nayayika says, unlike Nayayika says. So anyway, so this jati jnanam also is involved in Savikalpaka. And well, jati is always there in a vyakti, naturally. So jati was there. When child was seeing, it's not that jati was absent. He did not recognize. In his perception, he did not perceive the jati as such. So we should understand that thing. So jatis always remain in a vyakti only. So this Gotva jati, class of this cowness, is not independent, Gotva jati is independent and Vyakti, jati and Vyakti are independent of each other. No. Jatis always will be in a Vyakti. Cowness, the Gotvam, is always there in a cow. That's how you recognize. So like, a disciple of a Socrates asked him that, well, you talk about the mankind, etc. And, but I only see a human being. Where is humanity? Because you talk about humanity, etc. But where is humanity? I don't see. I see human beings. Then Socrates replied, you can't perceive humanity. You can perceive human being. And if you want to understand the humanity, make use of your reason. that this and this and this has some common in that. Well, that's humanity. That's the jati. So jati is not seen as such. Jati basically you can arrive at. There is something common in a given class. Well, that's called jati. So Ramanujacharya ji also says, well, we make a distinction between Nirvikalpaka and Savikalpaka, and but it is Nirvikalpaka perception also has an object, Savikalpa. I mean, Savishesha Vastu, Vishishta Vastu only. Savikalpaka perception also has an object, Vishishta only. And so there is nothing called Nirvishesha Vastu. So you forget about what you have learned from Nayayika and Mimamsaka. They have conditioned you. So everything is Savishesha, and that the knowledge of that Savishesha Vastu generated by all the Pramanas, Pratyaksha, Anumana and Shabda, all reveal only Savishesha Vastu. Shabda also, Shabda of Veda also, Upanishads also, etc. Don't think it reveals some Nirvishesha, Nirguna Vastu, Nirguna Brahma, etc. So you know about Brahman, Narayana, etc., which is Savishesha only. There is no Nirvishesha Vastu proven by any Pramana. If Pramana cannot give a proof of a Nirvishesha Vastu, then that Nirvishesha Vastu does not exist. What you know through Pramana, that only exists. Right? That only exists. You say green clip is. How? Because you know the green clip. Pramana gives a proof for the existence of an object. Simple. Right? Manadhina meye siddhi. Very beautiful statement. Manadhina. Mana adhina. Manam means pramanam. It becomes manam becomes manam. With that pra. The refa brings refa converts nakara into nakara. Anyway, manam or pramanam. Pramana adhina prameya siddhi. Prameya object. The object of knowledge, the existence, siddhi. Siddhi means existence here. Existence of an object of knowledge is totally dependent upon adhina, is dependent upon pramana. If pramana cannot know a given vastu, you cannot know the existence of that vastu. Simple. And therefore all the pramanas basically reveal savishesha vastu only. And therefore there is nothing called nirvishesha vastu. No pramana gives a proof of nirvishesha vastu. Therefore nirgunam brahma etc. is not there. Well, so this is thing. Then Advaiti has to enter now. They feel that, well, Advaiti will not have any answer. That answer we'll see on Tuesday. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.